Welcome to tonight's edition of Under the Bleachers. My name is Chris Ransom, and joining me tonight are the regulars, Brandon Larson, Brandice Bell, and William Yannish. We will be interviewing Rocky Lombardi, the former Northern Illinois quarterback, shortly here. But in the meantime, to kill some time, let's recap that classic game between Georgia and Alabama. I know it's 3 days old. I know there's some more exciting games this weekend, but, this feels like a good opening topic, at least until Rocky arrives, the Georgia-Alabama game, because that was an incredible game. That definitely felt nostalgic. People were tweeting that it was cinema. Definitely had Game of the Year vibes. I would certainly be down for a rematch at the Mercedes-Benz Superdome later in December if Georgia and Alabama both make it back to that game. I would certainly be down to watch that. But at this point, it feels like whoever wins the Georgia-Texas game in Austin, that's who's going to be playing Alabama, William. Don't you think that's probably what will end up happening if I had to make a guess right now?
Yeah, I can definitely see that. It's one of those things, though. Carson Beck, when I evaluated him, I just didn't see that fire that maybe he should have had, or to be a surefire first round pick. But other than that, I mean, Georgia, they're obviously one of the best teams lately, right up there with Alabama, and this was a heck of a game. And I really, the fact that Milroe came out and did what he did against Georgia was just, I mean, awesome. It was awesome to watch. I mean, the guy is, he's the most dynamic player in college football right now. And when it comes down to the Heisman, he should be leading in that category, in a landslide, outside of the people wanting, either Travis Hunter.
He jumped Cam Ward this weekend because Cam Ward was the favorite. And I'm not saying Cam Ward doesn't deserve it. I still think Cam Ward's the QB1 right now. But Milroe did enough for me to actually put him in the top 32 of my big board for the NFL draft. I moved him up to 26. I have Ward at 14 now. So I think as long as Ward and Milroe continue to win games and handle business, I think those two are probably going to be first-round picks. And it's just a question of, do we see Beck, Shadur, or Ewers, the three preseason guys that got hyped up, do we see any of them end up as the third QB picked in round one? But I'm not going to address that right now because, I mean, it should be about Georgia, Alabama. Malachi Starks was a player that disappointed me in this game. I mean, he was my number 3 prospect at free safety, and Milroe kept carving him throughout the game. A lot of people were saying this was Malachi Starks' worst game as a safety. And I think the absence of Dylan Fairchild at right guard is definitely a reason why the Georgia Bulldogs offensive line hasn't been what it's been. He got injured in the first quarter against Kentucky. Georgia's offense hasn't been the same the last 2 games without Tate Ratledge at right guard in that lineup.
Yeah, for sure. And
let's let Brandice and Brandon make their points about this game. We've done a majority of the talking so far.
I mean, I was shocked by it, to be truthful. I looked, I saw the score early on and was like, oh, okay. I didn't expect it to be a blowout, like, dang. And then all of a sudden, Georgia's right back into it. It's a back and forth shootout. And I agree with you with kind of your statement there. Like, it did end up becoming like cinema. I mean, watching it unfold, it was just like, what? This is happening? And now looking into it, I'm kind of more about like the matchups of it. Like, who has the secondary to run with it? Like, watching Bama get it going and hit on all cylinders. Like, man, it was very apparent that they set themselves at a highest tier of college football, I guess you could say. Because then watching all the other games, it was like, man, you could see the difference in just the speed, the aggression they played with. I mean, I was impressed by that, especially with it being a transition. Like, props to Boer for keeping the Alabama tradition alive, I guess, in that regard. Because, man, they brought it when it got tight. They went into shootout mode, and now I'm just looking at it like, who has the secondary to actually run with them?
Ohio State might. They have Denzel Burke, Jordan Hancock. They do have a few guys. They've got a freshman nickel corner. They do have a few guys, but I don't know if they have the speed and athleticism that Georgia has in their secondary, Brandon, like you said. So I don't think you never said that, but I get where you're going, the point you're trying to make.
Exactly that is if they drop 40, I can't remember the final 38. I can't remember the final score.
To 30. I think it was 34 to 33, and then Bama got a touchdown on a 2-point conversion. May have been 41-33 or 41-34, but it was one of those scores.
But if you're hanging that much on the Georgia defense, that's, like I said, that's nothing to trifle with there. Like you better have a top-notch secondary when you come to play Alabama, and you better have an offense to match it, is what I saw.
I do think Ohio State's got better corners than Georgia. I mean, Georgia did lose Kamari Lassiter. He's starting in the Texans now. I still love Starks, and I like Mikael Williams, but he was a game-time decision. I don't know if he played or not, or even if he did, he wasn't 100%. That was very evident based on what we saw on film. And without Ratledge, the offensive line's not the same. Alabama had answers for Carson Beck. That defense had answers. What was your takeaway from this game, Brandice?
So my first thought about 5 minutes in was who allowed the edibles to be taken. It just didn't make any sense what was happening. And my first thought was, are they all on edibles? Did they not know that the edibles were edibles? I've never seen Malachi Starks play so poorly. Every time you see a big play made, 24, he's right there. And I just didn't understand what was happening. Was he spooked? I don't know. This is obviously the biggest game they've had to play thus far. But the only thing that I could really describe is that edibles, because second half seems to wear off. Anybody that's taken edibles before, that after a while you start feeling a little bit more like yourself. And Carson Beck, he's got that, like, I do edibles face already. So you don't really know with him, but there was so much wrong. So many penalties that just seemed like, you guys are vets, a lot of you. This isn't a new team in that way. Some of the penalties just didn't make any sense. And more importantly, I'm still questioning. We know that the secondary is the weaker part of Georgia's offense, or defense, excuse me. But the line was not playing well. Did Milroe even get sacked that game? I'm not sure if he did. That's unfortunate. You can't win a game when you don't get at least one sack. I hate talking shit about Georgia because I'm a Georgia girl, but they disappointed me. And this is the one game that I was really hoping, it's okay to lose a game where it's like, hey, they just were the better team. But I didn't see that. There were a lot of mistakes. You could see very clearly that Carson Beck misses McConkey and Bowers badly, and even Ra Thomas. So he didn't have a lot of targets. And there were a lot of drops that I was like, come on, guys. Like, what are you guys doing right now? Catch the ball. Like, he was fairly accurate aside from a couple of, not so good passes. But there were quite a few, third down, second and long balls that were dropped at critical moments.
I agree with that, Brandice. And like, I had Malachi Starks at 3 on my board behind Will Campbell and Will Johnson. I ended up moving him down to 7. I'm not going to move him down too far. It's only one bad game, but I am a little bit concerned. I don't think he's a top 5 player in the draft. Still think he's top 10, but that gap between him and Notre Dame safety Xavier Watts, I think that's a little bit closer now than most people realize between those two safeties. I think I have them at 7 and 11 each for the NFL draft. So that gap between those two safeties is a little bit closer than people realize. And I mean, I like Starks, but I don't know if I could say I'd pick him in the top 5 now after what he did against Alabama, because there were a lot of miscues on his end in that game. But Milroe just played his heart out, played lights out, and Alabama got things done. Are there any other games you want to mention or games you want to preview before Rocky gets here?
I think me and William had been talking about a few games that we were interested in this week. I know this is still dealing with last week, but I'm shocked about Ole Miss and Kentucky. Like that one, that was interesting. Like basically my bracket is fucked at this point, but let's just start over this week.
I mean, Deion Walker is a bad dude. I mean, the nose tackle in Kentucky, he's impressed me in 3 games in a row now. He impressed me against South Carolina, despite the fact that South Carolina won that game. He made some big plays in that game. He impressed me against Georgia, holding the Bulldogs to 10 points. And then last week against Ole Miss, just the 3rd game in a row, Deion Walker, Kentucky's nose tackles, impressed me. They got a pretty good corner in Maxwell Hairston as well on that Kentucky defense. And that defense is no joke.
That I've just noticed in this year already, through the first few weeks is just how much some of these teams are going out there and actually, like shocking, college football and everything else. And I believe that has a lot to do with the 12-team format for the playoffs, because so many more can get in there, and if they can just get closer, they feel that if we can do this or do this, we won't be overlooked, and I think that's actually a huge thing, and it's definitely going to ramp up the competition and things like that. Kentucky almost beating Georgia, and then Georgia going down to Alabama, and just the way that some of this is going. But some of these teams have such a hard schedule, but it's not only the point of winning, just their games there. It's just getting to that conference title game, and then, it's any given Saturday, and I think that's how a lot of these teams feel, I mean, there's Tennessee, they're stomping everybody, but, they still have Alabama, Kentucky, and Georgia on the schedule, and it's things like that. And whatever is going on in the Big 12 is actually just crazy, because by the time the next few weeks is over, might be scratching our head at who's going to be in that Big 12 title game, with Utah going down, and teams coming up like BYU. But BYU, they might still be undefeated, but it's the point that they have games coming up against Ole Miss and Oklahoma, and the juggernaut of Alabama.
They also have to go through Rice Eccles.
Yeah, and I don't see them getting to that Big 12 championship game, but there are a lot of teams there that I can see squeezing their way in. And the one that's actually got me, my interest peaked a little bit is Iowa State and what they're doing with Rocco Beck, quarterback, the son of Anthony Beck from the Jets. But I think that they actually have a chance to get there, and that could definitely be interesting. But yeah,
I'm not buying BYU as contenders either, William, but they are the only Big 12 team that's 2-0 in conference play. Them and Iowa State are the only unbeatens left in the conference, and they're the only two. They're the 2 highest ranked teams. So I gave BYU the tiebreaker for now. That doesn't mean I'm buying them as contenders. That just means as long as they keep winning games and handling business, they're the favorites. I mean, they get Arizona at home, a team that went on the road and beat Utah last week. They get Oklahoma State at home. They got to go to Central Florida. They got to play Utah November 9th. So even if they win their next 2 home games, and actually they have a bye week this week, and they play Arizona October 12th next Saturday. But even if they handle business in October, they got to play Utah in November in Utah. That is not going to be an easy game to win. They're going to lose that game if they don't lose to Arizona or Oklahoma State. They may play themselves out of contention. And Iowa State is the other unbeaten team. So I do think that the Big 12 is kind of a crapshoot right now. So
especially with
all of the conferences seem to be a little bottom heavy when it comes to the schedule. So it's kind of hard to make any predictions right now, because I think the SEC and also Big 12, some ACC teams also that got a really tough schedule coming down the pipeline towards October and November.
I think the Alabama-Tennessee winner is going to be the first team in the SEC championship, but I couldn't definitively tell you who the second team is, because Missouri could still theoretically go undefeated. Texas, Georgia, It feels like the winners of Texas, Georgia, and Alabama, Tennessee will be the two teams that meet. But if Tennessee beats Bama and then Georgia beats Tennessee, it just throws a monkey wrench into everything. And that's kind of what Brandice is getting at, because it's that uncertainty that makes this SEC conference up for grabs.
But that's what makes college football so great, though, is on paper how different everyone had it thought out to be, and then now here we are, we're watching it play out, and it's like, oh, okay, that like did we see all of this coming? Not by any means. I love a monkey wrench thrown in the system, because then it makes it makes other teams respond. It gives another team a chance that maybe didn't get that chance. I mean, like you guys said, the Big 12 is completely wide open. There's multiple teams that look poised for it. I'd make the argument we have no idea what Utah is until Rising gets back. You've got a freshman quarterback, and we saw that on Saturday for dang sure. But I mean, BYU, it hurts to say, but they're playing good. If just about you can pull, blind stat and go this defensive stat, and they're top 20 in it. So I can't just look past them by any means. And then to being a homer, like, that's great for the rivalry, for that game to matter. Like, well, I think it's November 9th. Like, that could be a big game. If they're undefeated, Utes are one loss at that point, that might pull game day. Outside of that, I wanted to throw a shout out to I forget his first name, Gentry, the BSU running back. If you're averaging 10 yards plus a carry and like 13 touchdowns 4 games into the season, like, I'd almost say that guy has my vote for Heisman at the moment, because give me another player that's ever put those stats up at this point. Like, I don't even think Henry was quite that dominant. Far greater conference, but
he is great.
Yeah.
He is amazing. Like,
Genty's crazy.
some NFL scouts are basically telling Dane Brugler of The Athletic, the player comp we have for Ashton Genty is LaDainian Tomlinson and Barry Sanders. I will not go that far to an extreme,
wow.
But it also feels like this. I don't even know if that information's true or if scouts really feel that way. This also feels like it could be propping the player up because he's just been so dang dominant. Because you hardly see players get compared to LT and LaDainian Tomlinson and Barry Sanders in this era with the running back position. You just don't see that anymore. It does feel like the players being propped up to a degree. I don't know. I have a hard time believing a scout actually said that about Genty, even though he's kicked butt so far. And I think Williams' agreement with me on that. I wanted to get to Iowa State quickly. They got a really easy strength of schedule. They could be the team that breaks out in the Big 12, but they have 2 really tough games to end the year against Utah and Kansas State. They could be the team that breaks out, but they could also be like 2019 Minnesota. Remember when Minnesota started 9-0? They lost to Iowa, and all they had to do was beat Wisconsin. They're in the Big 10 championship against Ohio State, and they just got embarrassed in the regular.
And that was when everyone was beating Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, not to add like insult to injury, but
that's when they had Jonathan Taylor. But yeah, you're right on that. But that's kind of what I'm trying to figure out. Is Iowa State going to be that team that breaks out, or are they going to be the team that wins early and then chokes down the stretch like 2005 Alabama with Brody Croyle, or 2019 Minnesota? What are they? Because Williams,
and that's the thing, they've always had a pretty semi-competitive team, and it just depends on what their quarterback is made of, and just how much he has, and I mean, they already went into the Iowa rivalry and won, and even though it was just a point, but I don't know.
Is that really the benchmark to hang the hat on, though?
Yeah, the thing with like I said, with some of these teams, it's going to come down to the quarterback, and it's going to come down to coaching. How much star power that they might actually have, and so the one thing is it's just going to be a complete wild card, and until they have that defining moment, you can't really say much until they have that defining moment as a team, kind of like Milrow did, this last weekend, and things like that. I mean, so it's one of those things.
Yeah, Texas Tech's also 2-0 in the Big 12, as are the Colorado Buffaloes after that Hail Mary over Baylor a few weeks ago. But yeah, let's talk about there's 4 games William and Brandice wanted to preview, and there's a 5th game I wanted to preview, which is the Miami-Florida Cal game. So I'm going to start off with that game, and then I'll get into the games that William and Brandice wanted, starting at Ohio State, Iowa, and working up to the number 1 game on the list. So instead of going by time, I'm going to go by game excitement, with least exciting game, then most exciting game at the end, until Rocky Lombardi joins. If he does join during the middle of this segment, we'll pause. We will come back to this segment at the end. But I'm going to start with Miami, Florida versus Cal. College game day's first trip to Berkeley. And while I do think the Hurricanes are going to handle this game quite convincingly, the Cal Golden Bears, they do have a pretty good running back named Jaden Ott. I have a 2nd-round grade on him, but, it'll be interesting to see, can Jaden Ott control the clock, take over this game, and limit Cam Ward's yards and time of possession? Because that's going to be the key for Cal if they want to pull the upset. Is Jaden Ott? He's going to have to run the ball, and he's going to have to keep Cam Ward off the gridiron. And the Hurricanes, they've got a decent running back in Damian Martinez as well, who went to Oregon State last year, put up 1,000 yards there. But it's been all Cam Ward this year. Cam Ward, 300 passing yards every game so far. Hurricanes just look really good. But this is their first ACC game against a team on the West Coast. So it's a really big opportunity. And how is that East to West Coast hangover? How is that going to affect them? We're going to find out this weekend. But I like the Hurricanes in this one.
I definitely like the Hurricanes too. But, after last week at Virginia Tech, there's not a lot of people that thought they should have won that game, so it kind of shows you they can be beat, and I mean, obviously, Cam Ward is dynamic, and obviously, he's right up there, in the Heisman rankings. He's got 18 touchdowns, through the air, 2 more on the ground. He only has 4 picks, and I mean, outside of that game yesterday, I mean, he's been doing great, but up until then, they hadn't played a team that at least had a little bit of oomph to them.
Yep.
I think definitely exposed. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to say they've got I'm not going to say an easy ride. I think I'm coming down. Like they could struggle a little bit with maybe even Georgia Tech. You never know. I think that they'll be fine with Cal this week, though. I think they'll be fine for the next couple of weeks.
Louisville's really the only team I could see them losing to in the regular season. I had Florida State as and Miami in my preseason, but I also said that outside of Florida State, the one team I liked was Louisville. I thought Clemson was overhyped to a degree, and I pointed out how Clemson lost all their talent to the NFL draft in 23, Pitt in 22, and now in 2024, Florida State lost a ton of talent to the NFL. So I think if there's a challenger to Miami in the regular season, it's probably Louisville. And if they can come away with a win against Louisville, they might be 12-0 come ACC championship time. And I think they have to be 12-0 to get in, because if they lose to a really bad team, like let's say they lose to a Clemson or they lose to a Pittsburgh or they lose to somebody they're not expected to lose to, and it's a really ugly loss in the ACC title, they're going to need to be undefeated in the regular season to get in the playoff as a lower seeded team, essentially, the Hurricanes. So, because they don't have the luxury that these SEC and Big 12 teams have this year. But as long as they keep handling business, keep getting wins, it's not going to matter. And Brandice, William, all 4 of us seem to agree that Miami, Florida should handle business against the Cal Golden Bears. It's not like the Golden Bears have a good quarterback. They had Chase Garbers a few years ago. They had Aaron Rodgers back in the day, but that's 20 years ago. It's a long time from now. And they
had Jared Goff.
They had Kyle Bowler too, I think. And they had Jared Goff. You're right. I love Goff at Cal, but yeah, They haven't been the same since they lost Goff at that position, and I think the Hurricanes handle business here. All four of us have the Hurricanes winning, Brandon?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, I think the biggest thing for is anybody playing Miami is can you contain Cam Ward? They they showed last week, say a bit of a chink in the armor, if you will. If you can, you can bring the game close. It can be tight. But man, if you let him run, you let him get outside the pocket and make plays, they'll run away from you. And I think that's probably what happens here. But Cal can be a tough out sometimes.
Yeah. And the next game is number 4 on William and Brandice's list. It's Iowa, Ohio State, 3:30 game Saturday. I think this is going to be on CBS. I don't know. They don't say what channel the game is on, but I think this will be on. A reason I think it's going to be on CBS is because CBS usually does air a 3:30 Big Ten game, and I haven't seen the cable network for It's going to be on CBS. Yeah. I have not watched any Big Ten games on CBS this year. I'll be honest. I watched the end of Michigan USC, but the Big Ten games on CBS just haven't been exciting since CBS lost the rights to the SEC to ABC. I'll probably watch this one, though. But yeah, as far as Iowa, Ohio State goes, Ohio State's just got one of the best defenses in the country. So many underclassmen returning. The offense has been incredible, and their point differential is what stands out. And the reason I say their point margin stands out is they've got a first round running back in Judkins. They've got Henderson. They've got Fleming. They've got, they've got a ton of weapons. Ohio State, they've got a freshman wide receiver. They've got a freshman wide receiver in Jeremiah Smith, who leads the team in receiving yards. You've got Emeka Egbuka, and you got Carnell Tate. You've got a bunch of weapons on this Ohio State offense. And it's not just the fact that a lot of their underclassmen returned. It's the fact that like Tuamoloau, Jack Sawyer, Tyleek Williams, they've been winning by significant margins. They beat Akron 52-6, Western Michigan 56-0, Marshall 49-14, and Michigan State 38-7. Those are not formidable opponents. They're expected to blow those teams out. But these next 2 games against Iowa and Oregon are going to tell us a lot about the Ohio State Buckeyes. And
in the next 4 games.
Yeah, you play Nebraska and Penn State too, Brandice. You're right. So these next 4 games, probably going to have an Ohio State-Oregon thumbnail next week. I'm not trying to look that far ahead, but if I had to make a hypothesis, the Williams probably going to draw up an Oregon-Ohio State thumbnail for next Saturday. If I had to take an educated hypothesis right now at this point on October 2nd, that would be my hypothesis. It's a pretty sound.
Is that Oregon home or Ohio State?
Oregon.
Ooh, okay, going up to Eugene.
Yeah.
That makes it a little interesting. I think the Ducks won last time they were
outside of Alabama, Georgia, this is probably the most anticipated game of the year. I'm not saying this is more anticipated than Alabama, Georgia, but if I were to rank games the year candidates, it'd be Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, and Michigan, Ohio State. That would probably be my top 3 for game of the year candidates. But now that Michigan's lost a game, Oregon, Ohio State are both undefeated. There's a lot more on the line in that one. Mm-hmm. And, we'll see what happens. But I like the Buckeyes. They just have too much talent on both sides of the ball. Everybody's talking about Iowa's tight end, Luke Lakey. He's talented, but I still think Colson Loveland is better. But there's a lot of people coming around to Lakey maybe being the tight end 1. I get it. Iowa's factory, Eric All, Hawkinson, Kittle. They've had numerous guy after numerous guy at the tight end position go early, and they've built a factory at that position. They've got Jay Harris at middle linebacker. They've got an outside linebacker that's pretty good too. I love their safety tandem of Xavier Nwangpa and Sebastian Castro. I had a first-round grade on Castro in August, and this is a game against Ohio State. Can he step up in this game? If he gets exposed in this game, Castro could end up moving down into day 2 territory because, Ohio State's got a lot of good weapons, and this is a big test. I think Sebastian Castro's got to step up for Iowa's defense, and their quarterback, former Michigan quarterback Cade McMorrow and Luke Lakey, they're going to have to be the guys on offense in order for the Hawkeyes to steal this, William. But I like Ohio State to win.
I'd like to pick Iowa and all, but I'm just not sure if they can hang with Ohio State. And it's gonna, be a big thing if they can, pull something out like that. And something. Let me just say it. I'll pick Iowa to win. I like Cade McNamara. I like the underdogs. I like and I see a chance there. And they definitely have some underrated talent. So yeah. I think
if the game was in Iowa, I might take Iowa. It's in Ohio State. That crowd in Columbus is vicious. They're loud. I don't think they're Alabama loud, though. But yeah, Brandice, go ahead and continue what you were going to say.
Of all the Power Four champions that we've predicted, Ohio State is the most suspect to me. At first, it was, the ACC champion. I was kind of unsure. Right now, I'm fairly certain who it's going to be, and that's the U. Ohio State, I just don't know with this schedule. They could easily lose 2 of these games. And I've just not really seen enough from them because they've had such a weak schedule on the front end. So these next 4 games are really going to say a lot. And I don't think they're going to win all of these. I think they could possibly lose 2 at least. So this game to me is going to say a lot because it's the first real matchup they've had. And we're going to see if they're the Ohio State that we've always known them to be, or if, they've just gotten a little lucky this year scheduling.
Yeah, this is the first big test for the Buckeyes. I agree with that. I think I had them losing to Oregon, and I think I had Oregon and Penn State as the 2 teams that I thought had the best chance of beating Ohio State this year, because both those teams get Ohio State at home, but we'll see. Brandon, what do you think of this game?
I definitely agree. I think Ohio State takes it. It would be a little different if it was at Iowa, but in that horseshoe, I think they call it, I hear it gets pretty rowdy. I think the other thing that'll be interesting to see, because like William mentioned, they have some underrated guys on Iowa. It'll be, can they make plays against the secondary of Ohio State? Because like you said, and we discussed it a bit earlier, Ohio State looks to probably have the best secondary in the NCAA right now. So that'll be really the determining factor for Iowa is, can their underrated talent, can it make plays, against that secondary, and, can they hang with the firepower that, Ohio State's bringing with offensively? And I lean to probably not. I'm Ohio State on this one.
Yep.
Hey. Yeah, I'm just now hearing from Rocky. I was mix up on the time. Let me tell him to hop on, and we'll.
Yes, we will put UNLV versus Syracuse on hold. Sorry, Red Rebels. I know you guys have gone through a lot. Your quarterback in the portal, Ricky White, your running back almost entering the portal. You've gone through a lot, but we have to put you guys on hold. I'm so sorry, UNLV. I hope the University of Las Vegas, Nevada can find it in their hearts to forgive me. But we're going to interview Rocky Lombardi whenever he joins us.
We can just put him on the next show.
No, let's put him on this one. We put a thumbnail on this one. We'd be lying to our audience.
Yeah.
I don't want to lie to our audience. I have too much integrity to lie to my audience.
Well, I've got to hop off, which might make the layout a little easier. So you guys have fun.
All right, Brandice, take care of yourself.
Always a pleasure, Brandice.
Thanks, Brandice.
Thank
you for
Brandice. See you later.
That was Brandice Bell, one of our insiders at Under the Bleachers. But William, Brandon, myself, we are going to be interviewing Rocky Lombardi whenever he hops on. So I just want to apologize to Syracuse fans in advance as well, because I know Ken LeBlanc Anya, who covered the MLB game recaps for our site. We do have a lot of Syracuse fans that listen to this show. So Syracuse UNLV fans, you're going to have to wait a little longer. It's not going to be easy. I mean, Kyle McCord is going to be put on hold for Rocky Lombardi. That's just how this program works. I'm sorry. Our thoughts on Kyle McCord.
Hey man, Kyle McCord is actually hold on. Where are my notes here? Number 1 in passing yards per game, 364.8. Number 1 in completion percentage per game, or completions per game, 28.5. Number 4, well, tied for number 4 in passing TDs with 14, and number 4 in total offense. So hey man, I just had to stick up for him, you know. And
I respect that.
It is Brandice's alma mater.
Some bad games for Ohio State. He's absolutely killed it with Syracuse this year, so I can respect that, William. I respect you sticking up for him.
But anyway, yeah, I told him to hop on. Hopefully he does. Otherwise, we will be lying to our audience.
Yeah.
I mean, we can proceed, and start UNLV Syracuse, and then
I
when
guess
he hops on,
I'm gonna
hit
I'm gonna take the Rebels to win this game. I think Ricky White. If Syracuse still in a corner as good as Garrett Wilson, but I think the playmakers are going to decide this game. Rondre Gadsden for Syracuse, the tight end / wide receiver, and Ricky White for UNLV. I do think the playmakers are going to decide this. Quarterback play will be important to Kyle McCord on Syracuse, and UNLV's backup came in, threw for 350 yards against a really Fresno State defense that was supposed to be really good. UNLV is the home team. This game is on Friday night. I'm going to take the Rebels just for the heck of it. I'm going to go 24-21. I think it's going to be somewhat of a high-scoring game. It might even be a 34-31 game, but I'm not ready to go that far yet. But I think the Rebels win this and keep their undefeated season alive.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. Oh,
it is in Las Vegas. They are the home team. Syracuse is traveling to Las Vegas. So,
yeah, I mean, jet lag is real.
William?
They have something to prove after the whole Matt Sluka thing, to where, he left after being promised whatever, somebody lied to the kid and then, tried to get him there cheaper. And, but, this other guy comes in, he went 13-16 last week, paltry 182 yards, but had 3 touchdowns and didn't turn the ball over. I mean, that is definitely a thing. And, versus Syracuse, might really be trying to hold on to something, but, they still have games coming up against, like Miami and Boston College and such. And I'm just not sure how much I believe in Kyle McCord, even though I'm just standing up for him. But with the hype and all the things, this UNLV team is going to be trying to prove something. So I definitely, would pick them to win this.
All right, there's 2 more games left. I don't know if we'll get to both of them before Rocky arrives, but we have SMU, Louisville, and Missouri versus Texas A&M. I'm going to take Louisville over SMU. They just have too much talent. Thor Griffin at defensive tackle, Quincy Riley at corner. They've got a lot of weapons. Colin Lacey at receiver, Tyler Show at quarterback, Brian Brahms, the offensive coordinator. I think Louisville, I know they were underwhelming against Notre Dame, but this is going to be a fun game. I think this is going to be the highest scoring game of the week. I'm going to come out and say it. I've got the Cardinals winning 42-35. I think this is going to be the highest scoring game among Power 5 teams this weekend.
Tyler Shugg, he's come out this year and, tossed 11 touchdowns, 1 interception, and he's doing better than he's ever showed in his previous games.
I like Logan Barr at left guard and Preston Stone at quarterback for SMU too, but I just think Louisville has more talent and they're the better team.
I definitely see that. And I picked Louisville to beat Notre Dame last week, and that didn't quite happen. But I think they can definitely win this one.
Yeah,
I would agree. I got Louisville on this one. SMU they seem to have got it rolling on offense, at least scoring a lot of points. But the big question will be, can they do it against the caliber of defense that Louisville's bringing? Like you mentioned, their D tackle, a good corner. Anytime you have quality edges and quality interior, you can really set yourself up to control a game. And fun little stat I actually saw when I was reviewing on this game. I think they said Louisville had a
Hey, I
46%.
Rocky Lombardi is on the call, guys. So
Oh, nice.
we will save the last game for after the Rocky Lombardi interview, which is Texas A&M, Missouri. But Rocky's here, so we will. Hey, Rocky, what's going on, man?
Hey, nothing much. How are you guys?
We're
Doing
doing
good.
well. William said a lot of good things about you, and I'm honored to be speaking with you this evening. What was NFL camps like after college this year, like the mini camps and OTAs and stuff?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I was in Cincinnati and had a great experience. It was a little bit different than college, but at the end of the day, it's still football. But met a lot of great people, made a lot of great relationships, learned a lot about the game, and got a lot better. So it was a good experience for me.
That's great to hear. William, Brandon, if you've got questions for Rocky Lombardi, fire away. I do have another question, but I'm going to save it for later. It's from the co-host of my Saturday podcast, Joey. I will ask you his question later, but I'm going to let Brandon and William fire away with some questions.
Last time we talked to you.
Oh yeah, likewise. Going through the NFL process, what was some of the things that were like some of your main critiques, telling you things that you needed to work on? Because I remember like reviewing the tape, watching the tape. Like I wonder why. I compared you to Josh Allen. I think William did as well. Like, what were some of the things that they said you needed to kind of work on or progress at? Because I thought you, had a total package, hell of a total package.
Yeah, well, thank you. I guess just in general, a little bit of technique and balance, trying to find balance in every throw that you try to make. There's a lot more, at least with the Bengals, we focused a lot more on off-platform throws, the ability to create space and find balance when most people would be out of balance. So I would say that was something that specifically they told me to work on, but yeah, it just ended up not working out. It is what it is.
Since last time, you were on with me anyway. We were talking about before the draft and everything else. I mean, what exactly was it like to go from the college offenses and such to what the Cincinnati Bengals have?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. Actually, they are similar, but they're definitely different, right? The NFL offense is way more complex. We had way more routes, way more concepts, way more run schemes. So it was definitely interesting. They had a different philosophy in the run scheme that I've ever run. So it was really interesting to get involved with that and learn a new scheme and a new offense. Um, it took a little bit for me to figure it out. A couple weeks to really get the verbiage down. There's a lot of two-play calls, so it's just a lot of practice. A lot of dedication and late nights of studying the offense. But it was like I said, different, but also similar at the same time.
Uh, if another team ends up signing you, I mean, what are you gonna do, or is there anything that you would do different than what you did in Cincinnati?
Um, I don't know if there's anything super specific, I guess, that I could do differently. I just got to take advantage of the opportunities when I get them. Hopefully, when I get another chance here soon, I'm able to prove what I can do and prove that I can be a help to whatever organization that is. And that's that. You really just got to take advantage of the opportunities that you're given.
Um, the other thing I was going to ask is you were drafted by the Michigan Panthers of the UFL, and
Yes.
a lot now. That there's a lot more NFL players, uh, you know, on the UFL side and signing over there, and whatever else playing, trying to get an opportunity, quarterbacks like Adrian Martinez, some of the other ones, that have been using it kind of like a minor league. Is something, I mean, that you could see being useful for your development?
Yeah, absolutely. Development and film. I think there could be a lot of advantages for in that league, and I think a lot of people have already taken good advantage, of that league. Like the guys you mentioned, that when I was with the Bengals, we signed I think 3 UFL guys, so they're coming in from all over. I think it's a good opportunity to get something on tape and show organizations what you can do on the football field. So it's definitely something that I'm excited for that opportunity, and I think I'm looking forward to competing in that league.
What's your favorite college memory?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say my favorite one would be my first. Well, I'll say two. At Michigan State, my greatest memory there was my first start at Purdue, when we played Purdue rather. It was a great game. Uh, the crowd was really into it. We ended up winning by a possession on like kind of like a last minute drive basically, or had a touchdown to seal the deal. And then at NIU, my first year there, we played Georgia Tech the first game of the year. Great game. Ended up catching a 2-point conversion to basically win it late in regulation. So yeah,
Nice.
those would be my top two.
And then I was gonna say the follow up would be the biggest team that you slayed in your time as college.
I would say the 2020 Michigan team or the 2020 Northwestern team. The 2020 Northwestern team was, I believe, undefeated before we played them. Ranked pretty high, so I would say one of those two would be the two of the top dogs that I've
Was
that
that
I've
the
Nice.
team that lost the Big Ten title to Ohio State? They had Greg Newsome, they had Brandon Joseph. Their secondary was loaded. They had a lot of talent in
Yeah.
defense.
And then they proceeded to slap Utah in the bowl game that year, I'm pretty sure. But it
Yeah, they had a great
pretty
defense.
sure that's the year.
Top to bottom, really. Linebackers was good. Linebacking core was good. Patty Fisher was a beast for
He was.
years in the Big
It
Ten.
was a hell of a team.
Yeah, I agree. And they had his name's impossible to pronounce. He's on the Colts. He's a defensive tackle, but he was an edge rusher at Northwestern. I know the player I'm thinking of. I'm sure you guys know, but his name.
Throw me the number. I think I know who you're talking about. It's like it's OW something, right?
I'm looking it up right now. Actually, I'm looking it up right now. It is Ado Timwa Adwabore, 4th-round pick out of Northwestern. He dominated the combine. I remember he was a 2023 4th-round pick, but his Senior Bowl and combine were so good that some people had him in the first, second round of the draft. I think I actually had him on the Chiefs. But, he was really in the first round, actually. But, yeah, he was on that Northwestern defense, too, with Patty Fisher and Newsome and all those guys. It was a really underappreciated, really good defense for its time.
Nice. I thought of one other one. Favorite wide receiver that you've tossed around with?
I don't know if I could list a favorite, but I've had plenty of good ones over the years. I really appreciate all of them, yeah, and all that they've done for me. So had a lot of good targets throughout my long collegiate career.
Safe answer. I like it.
All right, I've got a question. I'm going to ask you the question I got from Joey earlier. What are your thoughts on defenses going back to the 2 over safety look in the NFL? How do you think that's going to change the way college teams attack defenses, throw short, run more, and does it raise the value of running backs in college football, in your opinion?
That's a loaded question, but I'll start with the 2 high safety look. I mean, that's just it's important in the NFL because it's become a passing league. The better chance to stop the pass than too high. I think that it'll end up evening itself out. They'll go back and forth. If it gets heavy shell look, then they'll start running the ball more. Like you said about running back value, that definitely could increase the running back value. But eventually they're going to find an equilibrium, right? There's been eras of football where it's been run heavy and pass heavy, and it's just it's kind of a wave, right? It goes up and down. Nobody's doing anything really that hasn't been done before, or hasn't been done in the past. Obviously, there's more of a frequency of that look, but I think it's just a result of the league being so pass heavy recently. And do I think that it might even it out? Sure. And for the short term, for sure, I think it will increase the value of running backs, but I think it will continue to go up and down, throughout the course of the sport.
I agree with that. That's a great point. Brandon, William, what other questions do you have for Rocky?
Well, really, the last thing I really have to bring out is if a GM was out there watching this right now, what would you tell him?
I would just say that I'm ready for any opportunity that I can get. I'm willing to compete and want to prove that I'm one of the top quarterbacks in this country and deserve to be on a roster.
I like that. Last question from me. I did think of something original. Who's the toughest opponent you faced in the MAC conference during your time at Northern Illinois?
I would say from a strictly defensive perspective, the Toledo team, really in 21 and 23, that Toledo defense was really good. I would say 21 was probably a little bit of a better team. That 21 Toledo defense in the MAC, I would say, was the hardest defense that I went against.
Yeah. Because they had Mr. Relevant in the 23 draft after Brock Purdy, and I know they had Quinion Mitchell this year. So they've had a lot of good players on that defense, not just Mitchell, but their entire team as a whole is really good.
Yeah, it's a good defense in the MAC for sure. They're well coached. They're very disciplined, and they have great players. You just mentioned a couple of them, but they have really really good players in the MAC that match up well against every other MAC team. So that's why they're good every year.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, Rocky. And
yeah, man, and I hope I hope you get signed real soon, and get to a place where you can get your development really started, man. Because everything I saw on film and all the studying I saw on you, I was thoroughly impressed, and I think you can definitely compete in this league, and it's just a shot at maybe an injury or something will happen to somebody, and that they'll end up coming and calling you, man. I really hope that happens for you soon, man.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you having me on. It's a long season. You never know. A lot of stuff can happen. So staying optimistic. But yeah, thanks again for having me on, guys. Appreciate it.
we appreciate
yeah, we're all
joining us,
wishing for
Rocky.
you. Big fans here.
I'll get
Thank
this out there and share it everywhere, and share the living shit out of it.
That's great. I know
Be like,
William's
hey,
been
check out my
amazing
buddy
with
Rocky
us with
here,
social media. I appreciate this.
But
Absolutely.
all right, man.
All
Yeah,
right.
I definitely thank you for being here, man. And I'm actually gonna get a hold of you in a day or two. I have something I want to show you, and yeah, we'll be talking.
Excellent. All right. Well, I appreciate it. See you later, guys.
Later. That was Rocky Lombardi, former Michigan Northern Illinois quarterback, and he got a tryout with the Bengals. That was a fun interview. I really enjoyed talking with him. And yes, we promised you guys the final game on the list. It is Missouri and Texas A&M, the number one game on William Brandice's list. And once we break this game down, we're going to sign off here, and then we're going to head over to Utopia Football Insider as William and Brandon will be guest hosting for Warren, who's out this week at a family dinner. I'm not going to get into the details of that. It's not really my business to comment, but I appreciate Oren setting a thumbnail for that. But in the meantime, let's break down Missouri, Texas A&M. I'm going to go with Missouri. I mean, Texas A&M, they are a tough team to beat at Kyle Field, but they couldn't beat Notre Dame. I thought that Notre Dame team on paper was arguably tougher defensively than Missouri, but Missouri's got one of the best receivers in Luther Burden. I think Missouri's going to win this game. They're going to go into Kyle Field and they're going to beat the Aggies. Is anyone bold enough to take the Aggies to hand Missouri their first loss of the year?
No, I wasn't comfortable with Weigman being the quarterback, and I'm not comfortable with whoever it is now since he got hurt. So Marcel Reed, the coach for I guess Weigman actually might be a game time decision. The coach for Mizzou is preparing for Reed though, but I think that's just how
there were a
dynamic
lot
he is
of
compared
people
to.
hyping up Weigman as a first-round quarterback at the beginning of the year. We both said he was a third to fourth-round talent at best. The tape has validated that this year. Nothing's really changed as far as perception goes, and he'd benefit from coming back to Texas A&M for one more season next year.
Yeah, he needs to get himself a personal quarterback coach and clean up some of his mechanics and such, and get some experience and go out there and do something. I mean, he has the physical skills, but
I think
his
he could be a
mechanics are holding him
second in
back.
2026 if he gets a good quarterback coach and comes back to A&M and he really puts everything together. But I don't think he's there yet.
Yeah, I can agree with that. So yeah, I'll definitely take Mizzou over this.
I'd
Even
say
though
Weigman's at the same point Will Levis was at, because I think I had a 5th-round grade on Will Levis in 22, and he ended up being a 23 second-round pick. That's not really a high bar to set. I think Weigman can be better than Levis, but as far as trajectory goes, they're at the same point they were at in their respective draft-eligible years, first year of draft eligibility.
that's actually a pretty good comparison, and I also had a third on Levis. So I mean, it makes a lot of sense to
All right.
compare those two.
Brandon, what do you have to say about this game before we head over to Utopia Football Insider?
I mean, I agree. I've got Mizzou on it. Texas Station definitely is going to, I mean, it's a tough place to play, but like you said, they dropped that game to Notre Dame, which I kind of surprised me, actually. I thought they'd catch Notre Dame in that, but yeah, I got Mizzou on it. They got bigger fish to fry on the season. If a lot of people are penciling them in as one of those other SEC teams that makes the playoff. Like, if you're planning to be there, then you need to handle business here and now.
Yep. So that'll do it for this edition of Under the Bleachers. Next week, we'll probably talk about Ohio State, Oregon. We'll recap the week. Maybe we'll update the playoff, but we'll worry about that then. We got to head over to Utopia Football Insider.